Paige Emerson is the founder of Chubby Hiker Reviews, whose mission is to encourage people of all shapes and sizes to recreate responsibly in the great Maine outdoors. She writes and shares realistic and holistic reviews of hiking trails. To date, she has had the chance to review over 70 trails in Maine and continues to work on promoting inclusivity in the outdoors. She is a registered Maine guide and works to create connections for individuals within the plus-sized hiking community. She has started doing group hikes and events and has started incorporating chapter leaders into her groups for several counties. Please welcome me in joining Paige, and we really look forward to hearing more about your journey and more about your work. So thank you for joining us today, and please take it over from here.
Awesome. Well, first of all, thank you, Megan, for the warm welcome. And hello, everybody. Thank you for coming tonight. So as Megan said, my name is Paige, and I started an Instagram called Chubby Hiker Reviews. I review trails, I'm a social worker, and I recently became a Maine guide. So jumping into it, what is Chubby Hiker Reviews? It started as a social media page where I reviewed hikes that I went on and rated them based on their plus-sized friendliness. I would go on a hike, rate it, and post it on Facebook and Instagram with descriptions including their difficulty, their length, their elevation, and I also added things like whether they had bathrooms, what the parking situation was like, and if they allowed dogs. And then at the end, I would include my experience hiking the trail. Since starting this page in 2020, I've had the chance to review over 70 trails in Maine. All of these reviews can be found organized by region on my Instagram under the highlights. I do hope to one day have all of them organized on their own website, but that is in the works right now. So you might be asking, what will I find when I visit Chubby Hiker Reviews? The first one is just honest reviews from someone who is plus sized. I also often post tips for hiking in a bigger body. So that could be what type of gear that I use. And then hikes listed by region in the highlights, and also community events to connect with other hikers. So we've done a lot of group events this year, and I'll talk more about those later. A big question that I often get is, why did I choose the name that I chose? A lot of people say, well, aren't you insulting yourself with that name? But the whole point of it is it's meant to be ironic. It's tongue in cheek. It's like taking something derogatory and taking it back or owning it. So yeah, I'm chubby, but I'm awesome. Terms like chubby and fat are just descriptors. It's like saying that person has brown hair, blue eyes, she's fat. It's just a fact and not something that should be seen as a character flaw. So I love telling the story of how I got started because a lot of people say, you must have grown up hiking, but I really didn't. Growing up, I had gone hiking a few times, but it wasn't really something that I was passionate about or even something that I would say that I was interested in. In June of 2020, I found myself stuck at home due to the pandemic, like many of us found ourselves, and a friend invited me to go hiking. We picked a couple trails that were rated as easy, but we quickly found ourselves struggling to make it to the top. And then we lamented about how the rating system was really inaccurate. When we summited, I mentioned that I wished there was someone like me reviewing the trails that I was interested in and giving them more realistic ratings. Because the words easy or hard are really relative to your fitness level, your body type, and your previous experience with hiking. And without skipping a beat, my friend said, well, if there isn't anyone else doing that, why don't you? So it ended up being a pretty easy decision. I thought, okay, I'll start a little Instagram and rate things for fun. I'm in. So we came up with a name and created the Instagram, and I thought that was that. But what I didn't know at the time was that people were really desperate for a hiking community where they felt they fit in, and they wanted to see someone like themselves doing the things that they loved. I thought this would just be a little side hobby, but in reality, it answered a need and created a world where people felt encouraged to try anything. After hearing from several people who found my reviews helpful and inspiring, it really lit my fire to keep going and made this a passion. It has evolved over time into something more incredible than I could have ever imagined. Oops. So, as I mentioned, the pandemic really ended up being the catalyst for me to start hiking. There wasn't really much else to do at the time, and I wasn't the only one who found myself in this predicament. While indoor activities were restricted, outdoor recreation boomed during the pandemic. According to an article from the Associated Press, 8.1 million Americans went hiking in 2020 compared to 2019. I think in large part this is due to the healing benefits that nature has on the mind and body. And according to another article, this one by the Mental Health America about the outdoors and nature, sunlight triggers the release of serotonin and vitamin D, which are associated with boosting mood and focus and reducing stress. Without enough sun, these levels can drop, leading to symptoms of depression, anxiety, and other mental health challenges. So, when times are uncertain, we turn to things that we know make us feel better. And through the last 3 years of my life, things have ebbed and flowed with both good times and bad times. But the one thing that has been consistent for me is the joy and the safety that I find in spending time in nature. So this is an early example of one of my reviews. I'm not going to read this to you. It's available on my Instagram, but I just wanted to show it to you as an example. It is an early one. I've changed a lot of things since then. But when I first started out, I would include the trail length, elevation, how long it took me. I created this thing called the chunky rating, which is really just my rating of whether it was easy, difficult, or hard, or easy, medium, hard. I would review or the views, and then I would post just my review and my personal experience of hiking the trail. Since I started doing this, I've heard from a lot of people that wanted me to include things like the parking situation, whether the trail is accessible, bathrooms, things like that. So I usually include a lot more in my later ones. Another big question I get is how did I choose the trails that I did, especially when I was first starting out? So choosing trails to review that first summer was a little tricky. I was fairly new to hiking. I was really inexperienced. I definitely was not in hiking shape, and I just didn't know where to start. But I started at the best place there is, which is the beginning or the bottom. I chose trails with low elevation that weren't too long and in relatively populated areas with self service if I needed help. I did a lot of hiking alone as I experimented and found where my abilities lay. I will say that hiking alone requires preparation, and I took a lot of precautions to keep myself safe. Once I knew what elevation felt comfortable for me, I started working up. I added more elevation, longer trails, more rock scrambles or rungs, and I set my sights on what was my goal that year, and that was Tumble Down Mountain in Weld. So, Tumble Down Mountain in Weld is a summit in Maine with an elevation of 3,582 feet. It has a pond at the top and panoramic views. But before you summit, it's incredibly steep with rock scrambles, roots, and something that is ironically called Fat Man's Misery. This is a rock chimney with iron rungs that you have to pull yourself through. Some people also call it the lemon squeezer. I found the name of this thing intimidating, and I wasn't sure if I could do the mountain at all. We ended up setting out early in the morning and came back just as the sun was setting. Halfway up the mountain, I ended up with an intense migraine and thought that I was done for. But I ended up chugging a Gatorade and taking a power nap under a bush, and then I rallied and finished the mountain. I'm still incredibly proud that even though it was a lot harder than I thought it would be, I persisted and made it all the way to the top. And then this slide is just a few of some of my favorite trails. It was kind of hard to pick like my top four, but I just picked some that I really enjoyed. So this is a picture of what I mentioned was Fat Man's Misery on Tumble Down. The name is really misleading. It's wider than you would think. And then we have Table Rock and Grafton Notch. Morse Mountain is pretty cool. That's in Phippsburg. There's a mountain about halfway, and then if you keep going, it takes you to this beautiful, like secluded ocean beach. It's gorgeous. And then Partridge or Ducktail Pond in Amherst is a pretty big loop, and you can make it a backpacking thing if you wanted. I think it would be a good place for beginner backpacking. I haven't tried that yet, but that's something on my list to do next summer. So since starting my page, I've had several people tell me that I'm not a hiker, I'm a walker. And the reason they say this is because I don't always do mountains or days long backpacking trips with intense elevation gains. I definitely don't want to bring attention to these negative Nellies, but I do want to encourage those of you that feel like you can't be a hiker because you don't fit the stereotypical mold. The dictionary definition mentions hiking being a long walk in the countryside. It doesn't mention difficulty or elevation. So I believe that if you're out taking a walk in nature, then you can allow yourself to be called a hiker because you are. When I started hiking, I definitely wouldn't say that I loved myself. And I also had no idea that there was a movement of people trying to love themselves at every size. I discovered the body positive movement through my hiking page and decided early on to become an advocate for it myself. I've noticed a lot of people use hiking as a way to justify themselves. I've heard people say things like, yeah, I'm fat, but look at all these mountains I do. I'm healthy. And while it is good to be healthy, you also shouldn't feel like you have to justify your existence by being healthy. Whether you're fat or fit, healthy or sick, it makes no difference to the fact that you still deserve love and respect. So, another question that I often get is how can we be more welcoming to plus size people or fat hikers? And I would love to just hear from some of you. I believe the chat is available. So if you want to share, what makes you feel more welcome when you're hiking, it would be cool to hear that. But I'll also share some ideas that I have as well. So some of the things that I came up with, one of them is being honest about the trail. I've definitely had the experience where someone has asked me to come do an activity with them, and they've said, like, oh, don't worry about it. It's really easy. But then you get there and it's a lot harder than you thought. So, my advice is don't be that person. Ask your friend what their experience level is and what length and difficulty they would really be comfortable with. I think offering them options and letting them choose is probably the best way to go about that. Another big one is being mindful of any access barriers. And this goes for anyone, regardless of size. So we do this on a lot of our group hikes, but be sure to ask about things like injuries, allergies, medical conditions, and take those things into account. The third thing I have down is being patient. Many more experienced hikers enjoy getting to the top as fast as possible, but for many others, that's not enjoyable. I often find myself needing to take a lot of breathing breaks, and I also just like to stop and look around and take it all in. But I've definitely been the person that gets left behind because of this. So be sure that if you're inviting someone to go with you, you're prepared to slow down and to match their pace. And then lastly, I think a big thing is avoiding diet talk. Talk of weight loss can be triggering. I find that putting myself out there like I do, people feel it gives them the right to comment on my weight. They say things like, oh, because you're doing all this hiking, you're going to be so skinny soon. But the fact is, I'm not doing this to lose weight. I'm doing it for fun and to learn to love my body. So avoid talking about changing your body and rather just encourage others to come along with you to have fun and to spend time with you. It's more about the experience on the way there. So here are some of the amazing content creators that I found along the way that would be fun to follow. As I mentioned, I didn't really know about the body positive movement until I started my Instagram, and some of these accounts have really inspired me. So I would encourage you to follow these, and then if there's others that you guys have found, you can drop those in the chat for all of us to follow as well. So, over the years, I've been thinking of ways to expand what I do and the things that I can offer. I started looking into becoming a registered Maine guide about a year and a half ago, um, but I easily became intimidated by the process. Typically, you take a several day course to prepare, and then you send away for a test date. The test includes a written portion and an oral portion. The oral portion includes an interview by a panel of Maine guides and wardens that ask you questions in the field you're testing in, whether that be recreational, hunting, or fishing. You have to demonstrate proficiency with map and compass, lost or injured person scenarios, laws and regulations, and plant and animal ID. When I pictured a Maine guide, I pictured an ornery old man that had been in the woods for 50 years and knew everything there was to know. I let my fear get the best of me and I took the class, but I ended up not sending in for a date. I let a year go by, and then I realized that letting myself be intimidated was silly. There should be more women and plus size individuals in the guide field. So I studied a ton and tested and passed this past September. My hope is to start a business that offers guided hikes to those that are plus sized and intimidated by hiking. I want to continue my passion of making outdoor spaces more inclusive. And then one of the things that I've loved about the community that I've helped create is all the connections that have been made. This year, I started collaborating with other organizations to put on events like group hikes, clothing swaps, and snowshoe trips. The best way to stay up to date on our upcoming events is to check our website or follow my Instagram and Facebook pages. So, this is just a few of the events that we did this summer. This really was the first year that we've done group events at all. We did two in Portland, and then we had one in Vermont that I led. And then we have a couple coming up this winter as well. So I'd like to expand on one of the hikes this summer that we had because it really was just a surreal experience. One of the groups that I've been able to collaborate with is called Kindling Collective, and they're a queer-centered gear library in Portland, Maine. They're a pretty cool operation because for a monthly membership, you can check out gear just like a library. So if you're not sure if you're going to like backpacking, you can check out things like tents, sleeping bags, backpacks, etc. before you spend a lot of money on something that you might not like. So they reached out to me early this past spring, and we decided to plan some group hikes for the summer. One group hike in July particularly stands out. It was our best event attended yet. We started the hike by grouping up and sharing our names, pronouns, and our favorite way to prepare a potato as an icebreaker. Mine is tater tots, by the way. We then did an access check in and encouraged participants to share things we should keep in mind. Things like having asthma, needing extra breaks, having injuries, allergies, etc. We then explained how the hike would go. We would go out, have a stretch halfway through, and try to stick together. My favorite thing about these hikes is something that we have now borrowed from Kindling Collective called the banana split. If a participant feels that the group is going too fast and they are being left behind, or if they need a break, they can call banana and we'll all stop. Then, once they have had a break or caught up and are ready to move again, they can say split and the group will keep going again. When we made it to the halfway point, we were led in a stretch by Alana of Bigger Bodies Collective, and I'll tag their Insta at the end. Alana had us shake out our tension, shout positive affirmations about ourselves, and learn to move our bodies for joy rather than shame. We headed back to the trail feeling loved for who we were and made a lot of new friends and connections along the way. Something else that's new this year is the addition of chapter leaders. These are the three that we have currently. We've got Ellie Martin for Waldo County, Nicole Sutherland for Androscoggin County, and Jem Hodgson of Kennebec County. We've been kind of dormant for the winter. It's just been kind of a crummy winter, but we're going to be getting some group hikes ready for next summer. And I'm hoping to be able to add more group leaders. So if you consider yourself a plus size person and you want to lead some hikes in the state, feel free to reach out to me and um, we'll connect about that. So, looking towards the future, I definitely have big hopes and dreams for this thing that I've created. I'm always on the hunt for other organizations and groups or individuals to collaborate with. We need each other in this world, and I definitely can't do the work of making the outdoors more accessible alone. In 2024, I hope to review more hikes than ever before. I'd also like to expand and review hikes in other states. I've been invited to Vermont before. I have a group that would like me to come to New York, but I'm always looking for other places to review and to create more body positive events as well. This past year was the first doing community events, and it really was a trial run. I'd like to take what I've learned and do even more next year. We're planning a Bigger Bodies Beach Day, a river float, a pack rafting trip, and an overnight backpacking trip, and a ton more. And then lastly, I've had a goal for a while of building a membership-based website where all my reviews are accessible in one place. And so that's in the works too. And then lastly, so like I said, if you want to keep up to date on events or reach out to me, really the best place for that is my website. It's chubbyhikerreviews.com. I don't think that I put it on this page, which is kind of silly, but yeah, it's just chubbyhikerreviews.com. It has all our events. It has my email on there if you want to reach out to me. And then you also can buy merch as well. So we've got stickers, t-shirts, sweatshirts, what have you. And so that is the end. So I'd just like to say thank you all for sitting through this and for listening to me. And if you have any questions, you can just put them in the chat. I think Megan is going to read them out and we'll go from there.
That was really wonderful. Thank you so much, Paige. I know this isn't your full-time job, but you're busy. You must be busy if you also have like a job beyond this. So thank you for somehow finding the time and sustaining yourself so that you can actually do this amazing work as well. That's really great.
Of
Yeah.
course. Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I've learned is just it's okay to take breaks. And so the winter ends up a lot of the time being my downtime, just because I would love to be more active in the winter, but it's really also nice to just recharge myself and take that time off and then gear up for the summer because it's game on.
Right. Yeah, I saw one of your recent posts about how even the strongest trees go dormant in the winter, and I really loved that. And I think it's nice to um, give space for that as well, to allow, a creative person like you who's putting yourself out there and doing a lot of work, give yourself that time to just take a step back as well. Um,
Exactly.
so there, if anyone has questions, please do put it in the chat and then I can ask Paige. There were a couple of comments that came up while you were speaking, Paige. So I'll just say those out right now while we're waiting for other folks to put in their questions. And I
Okay.
think at one point you were saying, how do other people feel out on the trail? What's your experience out on the trail? And someone was saying, it's more crowded than it has been in the past. So just be kind and courteous to any hikers that you may meet on the trail, give them respect and the time to step out of the way, especially in terms of safety. And this is true for people, for any type of person, any type of experience and age and ability. And then from that, just, foster courteousness, which you, of course, taught us a lot about and shared a lot about as well. So the next comment is from someone, they're not on Instagram. Is there any other way to access the Chubby Hiker Reviews?
Yes. So we also, if you have Facebook, I have a Facebook page, and then we also have a Facebook group called Chubby Hikers of Maine. If you're not on Facebook, you can visit our website. I need to update it with more upcoming events, and I will. But that has usually our events on it and the way to contact me. So again, that's chubbyhikerreviews.com. Also, if maybe we can send up a follow-up email, I also have a email list that you can join as well.
Yeah, I'd be happy to get some of that information together and send it out to the whole registrant list. So I'll for sure do that
Okay.
in the next few days. We can work on doing that. The next question is, do any men join the hikes?
So we've had a few. I think it's been a little more rare just because I identify as female. And so I think that attracts more female participants. But I would love to have more men join us and male presenting persons. So if you yourself consider yourself a plus size man and want to join, or if you have friends, like please encourage them because everyone is welcome.
Do you see yourself going beyond Maine and New England? Con do you see yourself potentially going international, exploring the world, seeing other places?
I think that is I think that's way in the future. I'd love to go more places. Like I said, I've been invited to Vermont and New York. But it's tricky because this is, like I do this voluntarily. I don't get paid to do this. And so I do have a full-time job as a social worker. I'm working towards being an LCSW. So that takes up a lot of my time too. But if I could find some way to make this self-sustainable, then heck yeah, I'll travel the world, of course.
Um, so has anyone on your hikes been interested in doing any trail stewardship as part of a hike? June will be Love Maine Trails Month. This person would love to connect to share more if you're interested. Sylvia from Maine Trails Coalition.
Yeah, I'll actually type my email in the chat real quick if you want to connect with me about that. But I've thought about that before. There's another group, I think it's Maine Trails Coalition, that does a lot of trail maintenance, and I would love to collab with any of that. I think trail stewardship is a big part of using trails. And so, yeah, definitely I'm game for that.
Perfect. And I think we're just waiting to see if anyone else has questions. Um, one of the things that I really, really appreciated was, I mean, it was wonderful to hear about your whole journey through all of this, and you're incredibly inspiring to us and the rest of your community. That's very obvious with your presentation. But I really loved your definition of hiking, and we've been thinking about creating. Um, we have a hiking series, but we've been working on like an accessible hiking series. And I was even thinking, should we be changing the word? Like, even like, does the title of the event even keep people from it? And so I think that's really wonderful that you challenged us with a different definition of hiking than we're used to. And then also, when you were talking about one of the collaborations you did, um, in Portland and how they had access check-ins. I've heard about like med check-ins and things like that, but just even using that word like an access check-in, that's a really wonderful way to include a lot of things like medical stuff, background stuff, and whatever anyone else would like to share.
Right.
So that was really great. And I hope that if we do end up doing some sort of accessibility hiking series, that you might consider collaborating with us or being a consultant. And I think you have a lot to bring to the table. So thank you so much.
Of
Looks
course.
like some folks are adding in a few other questions. So what was the biggest surprise for you during the first few years of Chubby Hiker Reviews?
I think the biggest surprise for me was just the response from the community. Because like I said, I started this Instagram for like fun, to be a little side hobby. I didn't realize like so many people wanted that type of community, and wanted to see somebody doing the things that they wanted to do. So that really was the biggest surprise, is just getting that feedback and that excitement from everyone. A lot of people ask me if I get negative comments, and I do, because it's social media and people are rude. But the nice comments really far outweigh the negative comments.
So someone's saying that they quickly looked and they don't see your reviews on the website. It seems that reviews only link to Instagram. They're asking if they're missing a link somewhere.
So I can clarify that. So I all of my reviews are either organized by region on Instagram, or they're posted on Facebook. I would love to get them all together on one website, but they are not currently. It does take a lot of work to do that. And like I said, I do have a full-time job. So I'm not to that point yet. The website is just for events, learning more about leaders and connecting with me, and then finding merch. The reviews are not on there currently, unfortunately.
We just need to clone you so that there's just another you to do that work.
I wish. I've also thought about, tabling the website idea, because it is such a big project, and just selling a PDF version of all of them that you can download for like $2 or something like that. So that might be in the works too. I'd keep an eye out and see what comes next.
Yep, yep, great. I could totally see that working.
Yeah.
So there are a couple of folks that have posted in the Q&A. Someone saying this is really great and really inspiring. And then the other question, I think, was moved to chat. So thank you for doing that. And then the next comment is, how about finding a helper to update your website with reviews?
I've thought about it. I've had some people offer. My boyfriend is also really tech savvy too. I think it's just finding the time, because doing a website is really time consuming, and a lot of people want compensation for that, and rightly so.
Right, right. Well, maybe someone can collaborate with you and find some funding.
That'd be cool. I'm gonna look into grant funding too. This is all so new to me. I never expected to do this, and I'm happy to do it. I love it, but I gotta figure some things out.
Yeah, and one of the next comments is, I wonder if Maine Trail Finder would be able to share blog posts on your reviews. This is always pending funding.
So I have actually been in contact with Maine Trail Finder. They reached out to me. We're trying to figure out some sort of collab situation. So that is in the works. I don't want to give too much away, but we're working on that.
Cool. So if anyone else would like to put a question or comment in the chat box, please do so now. Otherwise, we'll let Paige move on to the rest of her busy life. And we really, really appreciate your presentation. This was really lovely. I definitely found myself smiling so many times. So thank you for making us smile in the winter. That's special.
It
And
is
I hope that your winter and spring go well, and look forward to seeing where all of this leads you to.
awesome. Well, thank you, Megan, for having me, and thank you everyone for coming and sharing all of your nice comments and questions as well. And also feel free to reach out. I did drop my email in the chat. You can always message me through Instagram or Facebook as well.
Perfect. And I'll try to follow up with an email to all the registrants with some of the information that was presented today, if you weren't able to catch it. Okay, thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Bye, guys.
Bye.